A very good afternoon. Welcome to the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. It's round 4 of the championship here from the Sepang International Circuit. We're just outside of Kuala Lumpur, and as you can see, there is drama taking place. These are the riders on their warming up lap. However, that flag they're waving at the marshal post indicates that there is a slippery surface. More importantly, you can see overhead the clouds are looming. There is rain forecast and on its way imminently. The riders now heading to the grid. They're all on dry tyres. This is going to be very interesting indeed to see what happens, whether they change over onto the wet tyres before the start of the race. Of course, there will be a bit of a delay if that does occur, so therefore the race distance will be shortened. If you joined us yesterday for race number 1 here in the Sepang International Circuit, you'll have seen, of course, that Canon Chu took a dominant race victory. And he lines up, of course, on pole position once again. Now, the umbrellas are going up, so does that mean the rain is coming down? It would indicate that it is so, because the sun isn't beating down to protect the riders, so the rain is falling here at Sepang. We could see a change of tyres ahead of the second race here in Malaysia. This is going to be absolute drama, and what is this going to mean for the complexion of the race? Surely these riders are going to be putting their bikes into the garages, changing their tyres. It's monsoon season here in Malaysia, and as I say that, the bike's now into the pit lane, and they're going to be changing the tyres momentarily to get themselves back out onto the grid very, very shortly indeed. We'll talk you through race 1 in just a few moments' time. You can see there the clouds still looming overhead, bit of sun creeping through, but now the riders heading out of pit lane on wet tyres. However, as I said that, the sun has come out again. My goodness me, this is absolute drama, and the race hasn't even begun here at the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. So the riders are now all on wet tyres, but the track temperature is 48 degrees, the air temperature is 32 degrees, and the track is drying so quickly it's nearly going to be bone dry before the start of the race, and all of the riders are going to be on the wrong tyres. Oh dear, what are we going to do? So the riders now making their way round to the grid. This is absolutely unprecedented here at the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. Now, if you did tune in to race 1 yesterday, thankfully it was dry, and we saw a brilliant debut victory in the championship for Canon Chu, the twin brother to Dennis. Absolutely dominated the race. He was 4 seconds ahead of his nearest rival, Azroy Anwar and Jerry Salim, who were very close as they came over the timing line. There was an incredible battle on the podium between Anwar, Salim, Noguchi, Raisu Yamanaka and Dennis on Chu. So from 2nd down to 6th place, they were separated by just over a second. It was incredible racing that went right down to the checkered flag. There was some brilliant action throughout the entirety of the field. Now, of course, it is exactly the same procedure that we have here today for the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. By that, what we mean is the grid is exactly the same as we had for race number 1. So the man starting from pole position is the man who dominated the race yesterday, and of course took pole position in qualifying earlier on Saturday morning. Canon Chu, he starts from pole on the outside of the grid. You can see there on the number 3, his wavy locks really blowing in the Malaysian wind. Alongside him, though, is Raisu Yamanaka, and alongside Raisu Yamanaka is Dennis on Chu. That is the front row of the grid. So the 2 on Chu brothers, who are twin brothers, by the way, if you haven't heard, they're both 13 years of age, but you can notice a distinguishable difference between the 2 because Canon Chu is quite a tall chap, whereas Dennis on Chu is quite small. He's pint-sized, effectively, which really does help with these motorcycles because, of course, he's a lot smaller and therefore he's got less weight to carry. So that is the front row of the grid. So it's on Chu, Yamanaka, and then Dennis on Chu in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, respectively. Row number 2, though, is Haruki Noguchi, the championship leader. Now, because his nearest rival, Yuki Kuni, is not racing here this weekend, he's out due to injury. He leads the championship now by 15 points over his nearest rival. Alongside him is a man who finished on the podium yesterday, Jerry Salim. He is in 5th position on the grid in the middle of the 2nd row. And Azroy Anwar, the man who finished in 2nd place yesterday, is on the outside of row number 2. Row number 3 is Koji Hirama, Lucky Hendry and Sia, and Krichipong Kaibasoni, who was so unlucky at the end of that race, was Kaibasoni. He was battling inside the top 10 and then went down at the final corner and unfortunately recorded a DNF on the last lap of the race. Big shame there for him. Row number 4 is Irfan Furman Sia, Takuto Suzuki and Reed Beattie, who got involved in a bit of drama in the opening stages of the race with the number 19 of Sohaimi, rather, I should say, who lines up in 15th position on the grid. We'll come to him in just a moment, but they got a bit tangled up in the opening stages of the race yesterday. So that is row number 4, with 12th position being held onto by Reed Beattie. Row 5 is Hazi Kamadin. Then it's Genki Nakajima, the wild card sensation from Suzuka. Absolutely dominated, or I say dominated, I should say, shot onto the scene in Suzuka and was battling inside the leading group. Had a bit of a difficult time yesterday, but nonetheless a good top 10 finish for Nakajima. We should see him hopefully repeating that same feat here this afternoon. Then it's Saul Saihimi, who lines up in 15th position. Row 6 is Koki Suzuki, Kai Sato and Koko Tadichi. And then on the back of the grid, in row number 7, is Bima Arfin in 19th place. So the klaxon sounds just under a minute until we get ready to go on the warming up lap here at the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. So the teams departing from the grid, just making sure all the bikes are ready to go and all the riders are ready. They'll head off, of course, on their formation lap to get the crucial heat into the tyres and the brakes, and then we'll have an 11-lap race due to the rain delay that we had. We will now have an 11-lap sprint to the finish, which will make it ever more exciting. So the team members just departing from the grid. We wait then for the riders to come on. Looks like there's just been a couple of issues there for somebody towards the tail end of the field. Looks like it could have been Genki Nakajima, but we'll keep an eye out and see whether he's all okay. Looks like he should be, so there we go. And then we wait for the riders to head off on their warming up lap, as we say, getting the crucial heat into the tyres and the brakes. Yesterday's race, just to mention, as well as the riders do head off from the grid, was held in a bit hotter conditions, 28.8 degrees air temperature, but the track temperature yesterday, 35.4 degrees was the air temperature yesterday, rather, so a little bit hotter than today. But the track temperature was 2 degrees hotter as well. It was 50.7 degrees on the track yesterday. In comparison, the air temperature this afternoon is 32.7 degrees, and the track temperature is 48.7 degrees. So still very hot indeed, and it's one of the most humid rounds we've gone to all season. 64% humidity, which makes it very difficult on these motorcycles, and very difficult in terms of fitness as well. You have to be a very fit rider to be able to last the longevity of these races, and of course stay on the motorcycle and be battling in these groups that we have seen. So now the rider's heading up to turn 3. This is the uphill turn 3 corner. Keep an eye out for some good overtakes taking place throughout the course of the race here. It often happens. There's Azroy Anwar, the Malaysian rider, the hometown hero. He's based in Kuala Lumpur, so just a few miles outside of this circuit. The nearest city to the track is Kuala Lumpur, and he finished, of course, a sensational 2nd position yesterday. Will we see him repeating the same feat, or maybe even going one better? Well, of course, he does start from 6th position on the grid. I'd like to say that that would be a bit of a difficult feat for him, but it shouldn't be at all, because we see these bikes running so closely throughout the course of the season, because of course they're absolutely identical in every conceivable way. It's often down just to rider ability more than anything. It should mean that Azroy Anwar will be able to get himself fighting in and amongst the front group. But of course, if you have just joined us, you haven't tuned in so far, you will of course not be aware that there was rain just a few minutes before the warming up lap was due to get underway. All the riders went into pit lane. They're on the wet tyres now on this race. The track, though, by the looks of things, looks bone dry out there. So they're on wet tyres, the wrong tyres for this race effectively. And now they're going to be doing an 11-lap sprint to the finish. So it's going to be a very interesting set of developments to see who is able to hold on the most. And we should see the bikes moving around a bit more, of course, as the rubber gets chewed up by the dry track surface. Of course, there's no water to cool the tyres down effectively. They're just going to be burning themselves up. So it's going to be a very interesting set of developments as the riders head down one of 2 long straights. This is the back straight heading into the final corner, the tight hairpin bend of turn number 15. We saw so many overtakes taking place here yesterday. We should see plenty more here, though, this afternoon. That's turn number 15, and then they come on to the start-finish straight to complete a lap. So the riders just making their way to the grid. Once again, just to remind you of that front row, Kanon Chu, Raisu Yamanaka, and Dennis on Chu. So keep an eye out for these riders. See how they get on throughout the course of this race. It's going to be very exciting indeed. A whole smorgasbord of riders. We've got the poleman, who's 13 years of age, Raisu Yamanaka, who is 15 years of age, and then we've got Dennis Onchu, of course, who is also 13 years of age, being the twin brother to Kan. So everybody making their way onto the grid. The tension here is building in Malaysia. The second race of the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup here in the Sepang International Circuit, about to get underway momentarily. You just wait for the safety car to go to the back of the grid. The green flag, though, is waved. Wait for the 4 red lights to come on at the top end of your screen, and then we'll be ready to go racing here in Malaysia. They come on now. Canon Chew on pole position, but it's lights out, and away we go. Who gets the best start from the front row of the grid? Raisu Yamanaka with a brilliant start, once again equaling his getaway from yesterday, but keep an eye out for Dennis on Chew on the inside as we head into the first corner. Pint-sized man is going to lead the way, surely the 13-year-old, but here comes the number 3. Absolutely brilliant start from Canon Chew from the lead from the pole position into the lead of the race by the first corner. Absolutely brilliant start there. Oh, and contact as well further back. Somebody's gone down. That's Bima Arfin. He qualified at the back end of the grid, and drama there for the Indonesian rider. He goes down at the first corner. Bima Arfin goes down the road. Hopefully he'll be able to remount, but nonetheless a big shame for him, and he's going to have a lot of ground to make up in this race. But as we head into turn 3, it's still Canon Chew that leads the way. The Turkish rider comfortably out in front at the moment, as somebody was going a little bit slow there on the exit of turn number 3. Hopefully they're okay. If it's a mechanical issue, we'll wait and see what happened as we head into the right-hander of turn number 6 and then into the double apex right of turn 7. So it's Canon Chew ahead now of Dennis on Chew, who makes his way past Raisu Yamanaka, or does he? No, Yamanaka breaks a bit later and holds the line, holding that speed into the corner. Don't forget, of course, these riders, they're all on wet tyres, so that is going to be very interesting indeed, and that's somebody else that's gone down. Big drama there. Hopefully they're all okay. Let's wait and see what happens as we head into turn number 9, though. But Canon Chew really coming under some pressure from Raisu Yamanaka, the man, of course, who qualified on pole position in Suzuka and finished 4th in race 1, but didn't finish race 2 after that drama. A good race he had yesterday, the Raisu Yamanaka, a positive top 5 finish. Will he be able to do the same, or perhaps even get himself onto the rostrum for race number 2? Opening lap out of 11 we are on, and it's still Canon Chew that leads the way, but Raisu Yamanaka, Dennis on Chew, Azroy Anwar all looking to try and change that. Anwar's really made some good ground. He qualified, of course, in 6th place. 2 positions he's made on the opening lap into P4 for the Malaysian rider. He is really going to be trying to get himself onto that top step of the rostrum to take home glory here in his home race. Meanwhile, further back as well as that is Kai Sato down the road. Sato has binned it at what looks to be turn number 7. Big shame there for the Japanese rider. Hopefully he'll be okay and be able to get back in the race, as we've seen with Bima Arfin. But we come over the timing line to complete the first lap, and it is Canon Chew that leads the way ahead of Raisu Yamanaka. But for how long is that going to be the case? Because Yamanaka pulls out of the slipstream. He goes deep on the brakes. Here comes Dennis on Chew and also Azroy Anwar. Hard on the brakes into the first corner we go, and it's going to be Yamanaka that leads the way now ahead of Canon Chew. Azroy Anwar in 3rd position. Dennis on Chew shuffle back down to 4th place. And keep an eye out very close behind as well, because the podium man from yesterday, Jerry Salim, is looking very racy indeed. He is currently interlocked in a bit of a duel with the championship leader, Haruki Noguchi. You can see the duo just battling in the background of your shot there. They are in 4th and 5th position respectively, and they're also very close to the front group as well, as are this battling duo of Lucky Hendry and Sia, and also the rider behind into the left-hander of turn number 5 and then turn number 6. Brilliant racing going on, and already the top 8 riders or so have broken away from the rest of the field. Still Canon Chew who leads the way, but we're not seeing the dominance like we saw yesterday. Perhaps that's due to the tyres that they're running, of course, on these wet treaded tyres, not giving the optimum grip levels. Does make it very difficult, and they're going to become like bubblegum towards the end of the race, especially with the heat here. But we head down towards turn number 9. Will we see any Dandere moves on the brakes? Yamanaka pulls out from the slipstream. He's hard on the brakes. A bit of chatter also as well from Dennis on Chew's front of his Honda NSF 250. Gathers it up very nicely, though, does the Turkish rider. And Yamanaka goes up a position into P number 2. So a brilliant start from all of these 3 riders, and the top 3 protagonists from yesterday not looking like they're going to be too much of a threat so far in this race, but anything can happen in motorcycle racing, and it usually does. But Azroy Anwar and the 3rd place man of Jerry Salim not on the rostrum as we speak. Azroy Anwar there in 4th place, rather, I should say, and still waiting to see where Jerry Salim is as we come out of the penultimate corner, getting ready to go down that back straight. Jerry Salim there all the way back in 6th position so far. It is the top 8 that are all dueling for places as we go hard on the brakes into turn number 15. Here we go with Dennis on Chu. Is he going to think about a move up the inside of Yamanaka? Well, he has a bit of a look, but can't make it stick through there, unfortunately, for the Turkish rider. Out of the final turn we go, and getting ready to come over the timing line. So, on Chu leads the way for a second lap. Then comes Yamanaka, but will Yamanaka looking to try and change it into the first corner? He's got that slipstream. Absolutely identical machines, remember. All exactly the same in every way, shape or form. He goes into the first corner first. Hard on the brakes he goes, takes the line, pulls in front of Canon Chu, and now moves up a position into the lead of the race. Great bit of overtaking there from Raisu Yamanaka, and now he's going to be really trying to get the bit between his teeth, trying to find his way into the dominant force in this race, but it's not going to be easy because he's got the two on Chu brothers battling hammer and tong. Canon Chu goes around the outside at turn number 2 and hard on the brakes into turn 3. Dennis has a bit of a look, but no opportunity being presented thus far as we go hard on the brakes into that corner. Out of it now, and now coming down, cascading through turns number 5 and then turn number 6. Some brilliant racing going on throughout the field. The top 3 almost breaking away ever so slightly from Azroy Anwar in 4th place, so we'll have to keep an eye out for this, see whether it does occur in exactly that way. Here comes Dennis on Chu though. He's trying to find a way past Raisu Yamanaka into turn 7, but you don't make moves there very lightly. He thinks about it but can't quite make the move stick. Brilliant racing going on further down as well. Haruki Noguchi's managed to dispose of Jerry Salim. He's now up into 5th place, so the championship leader looking to try and extend his championship lead, but that's not going to be easy with the man who's leading the way, Canon Chu, who has a bit of a bobble out of turn 9. He is really going to be trying to take that championship lead away. He's leading the championship in the Red Bull MotoGP Rookies Cup after that brilliant victory he took in the Sachsenring. And now he is going to be looking to try and change the running order. Here we go then with Canon Chu into the penultimate corner we go. A very famous sequence of corners this for various reasons over the years in various disciplines of motorcycle racing. Out of it now we go and on to the back straight. Still Dennis on Chu, slots himself to that slipstream. He really does like trying to find a way past on the slipstream. It does help, of course, because he's such a small rider. He carries, of course, less weight than the likes of Raisu Yamanaka, who's 2 years his senior. So it does mean that, of course, he will be faster on the straights, but in turn, it is a bit of a double-edged sword, that, because, of course, it's harder to stop with less weight on the bike, so it does make it very difficult indeed for him to slow the machine down when he goes hard on the brakes. So you will see the likes of Dennis on Chu and, of course, the younger riders in the championship perhaps finding their way through on the slipstream. But here we go, brother versus brother for the lead of the race. Dennis on Chu pulls out from the slipstream, looks to try and find his way ahead of Canon Chu, but no opportunity being presented thus far. Meanwhile, now Jerry Salim is once again ahead of Haruki Noguchi. That's an overtake for the 6th position as well. And Lucky Henry and Sia also in and amongst the mix there as well. The Indonesian rider having a great run so far this season. Best result so far this year has been 7th at Losail, the second round of the championship, and he could be on to perhaps equal that or maybe do even better if he's able to get himself ahead of Noguchi and the likes of Koji Hirama in front of him as well. Keep an eye out for that. Into the right hander we go of turn number 3. Everybody holding on very nicely so far with these wet tyres. It's a good job to see that as well. They're not affecting grip as much as we perhaps would have thought. It might be a bit hairy, shall we say, towards the end of the race, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Out of turn number 6, into turn number 7 we go. Noguchi now at the back end of this group as well. Hirama is now ahead of Noguchi, so Koji Hirama's up ahead of the championship leader. That's big drama there, so we'll have to wait and see what happens with this duo. That's 6th, 7th and 8th place respectively. Hard on the brakes we go into turn number 9. It looks like we could see a change of positions as well as the front bobbles for Koji Hirama. He's really looking very racy indeed in the mid stages of this race, already nearly at half distance here at the Sepang International Circuit. Of course, sign-ups for the 2018 Asia Talent Cup are open, so if you're a motorcycle racer and you fancy getting yourself involved in the championship, head over to the website www.asiatalentcup.com and you could find yourself on the grid in 2018 for the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. How exciting would that be if you made your international motorcycle racing debut? And what a place to do it. A great shot window, of course. We've seen the likes of Somkiat Chantra, Yuki Kuni, and the like also making their way up through the field into the Junior Moto 3 World Championship, in terms of the World Championship as well. Loads of different riders from the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup have made their way up into the World Championship over the last few years, and it really would be fantastic to see more talent making their way through the field. Meanwhile, change of positions there for 6th place as well, as Koji Hirama looks like he ran it a little bit wide. Indeed he did, and now Haruki Noguchi is running right on his tail and ahead as they come over the timing line. So Haruki Noguchi moves ahead, Jerry Salim also in and amongst the mix. This trio working together to try and bridge the deficit to Haruki Noguchi, to Azroy Anwar in 4th position. Be easier said than done that though, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Through turn number 1 we go though, and into turn number 2. Just behind this duo, I say just behind, it's a few seconds down the road, is Takito Suzuki and then Kaiba Sony. So Krichipong Kaiba Sony having a better race than he had, of course, in race 1, having stayed on the motorcycle for this one. Then it's Irfin Firm and Sia. And then Kaito Suzuki in 12th place, Solhimi in 13th, Hamden in 14th, and then BT, who once again is also still on the motorcycle for race number 2. So great result there for the only Australian in the field, rounding out the final points-paying position. Into the left-hander of turn number 5. Very difficult part of the lap. Again, you can see the circuit really does drop down then, but once you're standing at the apex of the corner, you can really see how much of a difference it does make as we go through the right-hander of turn 6 into turn number 7. Hard on the brakes we go with Jerry Salim. He tries to find his way up the inside of the number 9 of Haruki Noguchi, the championship leader, but no opportunity presented thus far as we come down the short straight into turn number 9. Hard on the brakes we'll go, shifting down the box into first gear for this one, down to just around about 40-50 kilometres an hour. Carrying the momentum through there, back onto the power. It's so difficult to get on the power with these riders, of course, on the wet tyres, because, of course, on the slick tyres, they'd go onto the power, they'd have the grip generally on the sidewall of the tyre, whereas on the wet tyres, there just isn't the grip available because of the tread pattern. It's not a smooth surface, of course, and where they're not displacing the water that they would be normally, they're absolutely just going to be chewing those tyres up. They're going to be like bubble gum towards the end of this race. There's going to be no grip at all on these tyres, so it's a good thing the race distance has been shortened by 2 laps as well, especially in terms of safety. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Out of the penultimate corner we go, onto that back straight once again. You can see a bit of a gap having formed between the top 2 of Canon Chu and Dennis on Chu, and then Raisu Yamanaka has dropped back into the clutches of Azroy Anwar as well. But then comes this 3-way scrap for 6th, 7th and 8th place respectively. Incredibly close racing going on throughout the entirety of the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. And great to see Haruki Noguchi doing so well on board the number 9. Fantastic race, of course, having taken that victory. His first ever victory in Suzuka last time out. Second in the second race as well, so good consistent results for him. And he just needs a good top 5 finish to consolidate his championship lead. But this man here is really going to be looking to try and change that and take it away from him. Kan On-Chu, the 2 On-Chu brothers, 13 years of age, leading the way. Born in Alanya in Turkey. 13 years old they are now as well. They, in fact, no, I apologise, actually. They will be turning 14 very soon. So there we go. So 14 years old they are now as well, the On-Chu brothers. So they'll, of course, be looking to try and, as they get older, make their way up the ranks into perhaps the Junior World Championship. Of course, the duo of brothers of Kan and Dennis also competing in the Red Bull MotoGP Rookies Cup as well. Likewise, with the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup, a great shot window for prospective teams in the World Championship. So we could see either of these brothers, perhaps maybe even both of them, ending up on the grid. It's not the first time we'll have seen brothers racing in the championship. The likes of course, Brad Binder and Darren Binder, who competed in Moto 3 together for a variety of years until Brad moved up to Moto 2 this year. But nonetheless, it would be good to see the 2 Turkish brothers making their way into the World Championship before too long. A lot of chatter on the front end there for the number 8 of Koji Hirama. He goes down at turn number 9. I was just mentioning that he had a bit of chatter on the front end, and it looks like his front end has cried no more. Big shame there for the Japanese rider. He goes down at turn number 9. He was under a lot of pressure from the championship leader Haruki Noguchi from behind, and he goes down the road, and that will be a DNF for the Japanese rider. Big shame there for him. Looks like he was on for perhaps one of his best results of the season so far. His best race was in Suzuka, 4th place for him. It won't be here now, I'm afraid to say, for Koji Hirama. Big shame there. Over halfway, though, in this race we are. Lap 6 out of 11, soon to become 7. There is Hirama walking away, absolutely disconsolate. I wouldn't like to be in the debrief after that one, but nonetheless, You can take the positives from the fact that he was running in and amongst the front group. It is racing, of course. You get another bite at the cherry, of course, in Motegi in October. A big gap, of course, that we have in the championship between August, September, and then we go into the next round of the championship in October. So it will be good to see the championship back out, and that is when Koji Harama will be looking to try and make amends. Meanwhile, Azroy Annuar now ahead of Raisu Yamanaka, but Yamanaka's hard on the brakes, looking to try and find an opportunity into the first corner. Bit wide there from the number 20 of Annuar, the Malaysian rider. Nonetheless, onto the podium, both of these, well, I should say Annuar is at the moment. Yamanaka, though, now in 4th place, so it's a battle for the final spot on the rostrum, as the two Onchu brothers are, of course, occupying the top 2 positions. We come up the brow of the hill and in towards that 3rd corner, once again hard on the brakes. Interesting to note, of course, the difference in riding styles between these riders as well. It's so interesting to note how the riding styles have evolved over the years, of course. 5 years ago, we never saw the elbow out in the likes of MotoGP, and it's a very distinctive style, and it really does work on these bikes as well, carrying more momentum through the corners. You're able to carry more corner speed with the bike lent over more, and it just is able to grip a little bit more hard as well, despite there being a bit less contact patch on the tyres. But speaking of contact patches on the tyres, of course, these wet tyres are really going to be coming towards the end of their shelf life very soon indeed. Lap 7 out of 11 we are on. Canon Chu has broken away from his brother Dennis, as you can see, as we go into turn number 9. Hard on the brakes we are. That 3-way scrap, as we mentioned, for 5th place between Noguchi, Harama and Salim now becomes a 2-way scrap just between Noguchi and Salim, and it is the championship leader who has the advantage in P number 5 at the moment. 15 points, of course, his advantage over Yuki Kuni going into this race this afternoon. However, of course, Kuni not racing here this weekend due to injury. It does mean that Noguchi will surely increase his championship lead, but of course it will be very interesting to see what the gap will be once Canon Chu has crossed the line, if indeed he does well. Bit wide there as well, bit of a wider line for Haruki Noguchi. Manages to hold on very nicely, however, and gather up the apex. So lap 7 out of 11 we are on. Down that back straight, so important to get the slipstream there, as we have seen throughout the course of the years in the MotoGP Championship. World Superbikes, of course, come here as well. And of course, this round supporting the Malaysian Superbike Championship as well. So a bit of variety of racing. Meanwhile, a bit further back, there's a great little scrap going on as well. The number 24 is Irfan Firmancia. Just behind him is the number 18 of Koki Suzuki. And just behind them is Krishipon Kaiwasoni. Some great battles going on, as up the inside went the number 18 of Koki Suzuki. He's now ahead of Irfan Firmancia, so moves up a position. This is just inside the top 10 for 8th position respectively. They come over a timing line separated by just a hair's width at the moment, and 4 riders all separated by just a few tenths of a second, but the top 3 in this little group mainly battling inside the top 10. Hard on the brakes we go with Kaiwasoni. He's up the inside and now moves himself up into 8th position, so great race there for the Thailand rider. He's up into a good point-paying finish if he can finish there. Best result of the season so far was 4th in Chang, round 1, the Chang International Circuit in Buriram, Thailand. It will be good to see him doing very, very well in this championship. And don't forget, of course, just behind them is the number 2 rider of Takuto Suzuki. He's not too far behind as well in 11th place, so it could become a 4-way scrap for 8th position as we go down into turn number 5. Very close racing indeed between these 4 riders. It's still Kaiwasoni with the advantage at the moment. He's just ahead of Irfan Firmancia. Very distinguishable helmet design on Firmancia's bike, so that makes him very easy to pick out for us here in the commentary box. Hard on the brakes we go into turn number 7. Firmancia looking very racy indeed. This is one of the best showings we've seen from the Indonesian rider so far this season for the number 24. Best race so far this year that he has been 9th place in Suzuka last time out, and he could be on for a top 8 finish here. That would be brilliant to see. But of course the man in front of him, or the men in front of him and indeed behind him, will be looking to try and change that. As now ahead goes Koki Suzuki into 8th place. So Suzuki is now up into P number 8. So good race there it's been for the Japanese rider. Into the final sector of the lap we go. And Firmancia really still piling on the pressure now. Hard on the brakes we go. 4 laps remaining here at the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. Very close throughout the course of the field. Of course, this does mean There will be a difference in points in the championship in terms of the results as well. So, of course, if you finish in 8th place, you get 8 points, whereas if you finish down in 10th place, you get just 6 points. So there's a 2-point difference, and the Irvin Firmancia does know that, and he goes up the inside of Suzuki into 8th position. Hard on the brakes we go, leg dangling for Suzuki into the left-hander of turn number 15, getting ready to come over the timing line. Some brilliant racing going on throughout the field, really showing that these riders are proving their worth, despite perhaps not battling in and amongst the top group. Of course, the man in 8th place at the moment, the Indonesian rider Irvin Firmancia, 20 years of age, one of the oldest riders in the field. But the man he's battling, who just goes up his inside, Koki Suzuki, is 3 years his junior, born in Hirosuka in Japan. Brilliant race it's been for Koki Suzuki, and he now is into 8th position. So fantastic racing action going on as we go sliding through the right-hander of turn number 3. Crossing back to the action a bit further up the road, however, it's Azroy Anwar who's still under some pressure from Raisu Yamanaka behind, and they've really closed up on Denison Chu as well. So that is set to be from a battle from 3rd place into a battle for 2nd position. Keep an eye out for it though. 3 laps remaining. I do wonder whether we'll run out of time. Lap times, of course, given that they're on the wet tyres, they're on the wrong type of tyres, and it's bone dry out on track, have not been ideal, and grip levels are certainly not ideal. You can see the front ends of the bikes bobbling under braking, really under a lot of pressure. We saw Koji Harama going down the road there just about 3 or 4 laps ago. It will be interesting to see whether all the riders, hopefully, are able to hold on as we come into that final sector of the lap. Not been very sunny at all here for race number 2. As you mentioned, 48 degrees track temperature, very hot indeed. And the wind's blowing in a northwesterly direction as well, with a 64% humidity. Makes it incredibly tough conditions for all of these riders to contend with. Out of the penultimate corner we go, getting ready to come down the back straight rather, and then into the final corner for the start-finish straight. So nearly heading into the penultimate lap we will be in just a few moments' time, and the final spot on the rostrum looks under threat for Azroy Anwar as Raisu Yamanaka pulls out from the slipstream, looks to the inside line, goes deeper on the brakes, but can't make the move stick against the Malaysian rider. Track position belongs to Azroy Anwar, as getting a bit wide and all out of shape goes Denison Chu just in front as well. So the 14-year-old from Japan comes over the timing line. 2 laps now remaining. Is he going to be able to hold on to his rostrum position, or is Anwar or Yamanaka going to have something to say about that? Yamanaka pulls out from the slipstream. He goes on the brakes into the inside line, but no opportunity being presented thus far. This duo working together very well to bridge that deficit to Denison Chu just in front. It looks like it will go the way of Canon Chu at the moment, but never say never. Anything can happen in motorcycle racing, and of course it usually does. So it will be very interesting to find out and see what happens as we go through the right-hander. Turn number 3, then into turn number 4. There is Canon Chu, the Turkish rider, 14 years of old, from Alanya in Turkey. First ever victory in the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup yesterday. A dominant race, 4.412 seconds, his advantage over the rest of the field. A brilliant race it turned out to be for Canon Chu. His brother Dennis is surely going to be eyeing it up, but we've seen, of course, that Dennis has been absolutely supreme on the Red Bull Rookies KTMs, but perhaps on these Honda NSF 250R machines, just struggling ever so slightly to get something clicking with setup. He just seems to really do very well in the opening stages of the race and perhaps fade a little bit towards the end. Don't want to sound too unkind to Dennis as well, because he's a very nice lad and does produce some brilliant results when he's on the motorcycles. Running inside that rostrum position is no mean feat, but 2nd place looks like it could become third, potentially even 4th place. The slippery track flag is now out. I just saw the white flag with the red cross also, so that could mean the rain has come back, or perhaps there's a bit of moisture on the surface in the latter half or the latter stages of this race. Just 2 laps before the end. I don't think it will affect grip too much unless we get an absolute monsoon pouring down. And this being Sepang in Malaysia, when it rains, you need an oar and a boat more than a motorcycle to be able to negotiate your way around the circuit. Down the back straight we come for the penultimate time of asking. You can see that flag there waving in the foreground, so there could be a bit of drama on the final lap of racing, but I don't think the rain intensity is just quite enough, as Yamanaka is once again trying to find his way up the inside. He goes hard on the brakes ahead of as Roy Anwar tries his way around the outside through that corner, runs Anwar into a mistake, runs him wide, and now moves up into third position. So on the penultimate lap in the final corner, Raisu Yamanaka is up into the final spot on the rostrum as Canon Chu comes over the timing line to start his final lap of racing here at the Idemitsu Asian Talent Cup. But what's going to happen on the rostrum? Will Dennis Onchu hold on to his second place? Will it be an Onchu 1-2, or will we see Yamanaka or Anwar taking the spoils? Just 14 more corners to go after this one, separating the riders from the checkered flag for the second time this weekend. Into turn number 2 we go, then into the right-hander of turn number 3. Up a short straight, and then into the right-hander, the uphill right-hander of turn 4. Still Dennis Onchu with the advantage over Raisu Yamanaka at the moment, as Roy Anwar holding on to 4th place. There's your leader, Canon Chu, dominated this race from start to finish. Looked like Dennis Onchu might have a bit over him in the mid-stages of the race, but he's dropped back towards the latter half of it, and now they're really coming under some pressure from Anwar and Raisu Yamanaka very close behind. Turn number 6, they're not close enough at the moment. They're really going to have to put a very strong middle sector to latch onto the back of the Turkish rider. It could be the first ever Turkish 1-2 in the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. Through the right of turn 7, then into turn number 8 we go. Ready into turn number 9. There is Canon Chu, the number 3, dominated this race, leading the way. Hard on the brakes he goes into turn number 9. The front end bobbling away, really chattering quite significantly. Those wet tyres are past their sell-by date to the nth degree. Now just a few more corners from home, separating Canon Chu from doing the double here in Malaysia. But what we want to know is what's going to happen for second position on the rostrum. Will Dennis Onchu be able to hold on to it in the latter stages of this race? Looks like he's just got the advantage over Anwar and Yamanaka at the moment, and also who's going to get, of course, the final spot on the rostrum between Anwar and Yamanaka. Out of the penultimate corner we go, still sliding and bucking and weaving for Canon Chu. We can see the flag is out, the white flag with a red cross indicating a slippery track surface. Who's going to get second place? We come down into the final corner. Still Dennis Onchu, who has the advantage over Raisu Yamanaka at the moment, but Yamanaka pulls out from the slipstream. He's going to find his way surely up the inside into the final corner, but the man out of the final corner now is Canon Chu. He comes over the timing line. They were asking at the weekend, can he do it? Well, yes he can. Onchu does the double here in Sepang. Dennis Onchu does just hold on to the second place ahead of Raisu Yamanaka. So it's an Onchu 1-2, the first ever Turkish 1-2 in the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. Anwar comes home in 4th place. 5th place was the championship leader going into this race, Haruki Noguchi. 6th was Jerry Salim, and then it's very close behind as well, as the number 18 is up the inside into the final corner of Koki Suzuki. Who's going to get the position though? It looks like it's going to go the way of Firmin Sia, who got a great exit, and then it's going to be a drag to the line for 8th position. Firmin Sia gets 8th place, Kaiwa Sony in 9th, and Koki Suzuki in 10th, with Takuto Suzuki in 11th position. Those 4 riders separated by just a few tenths of a second over the timing line. What a race that was to the finish, and a great finish for Erfin Firmin Sia as well, taking his net best result of the season so far. In fact, his best result of the season so far. It was 9th before this weekend. He takes 8th place, and also credit to Frichipong, Kaiwa Sony and Koki Suzuki as well, taking very, very strong finishes as the final runners and riders come over the timing line. As he came down, then Reed Beattie, and then comes Sol Saihimi in 14th position, and then the final points finisher in 15th position is Koko Tadichi, the number 23. What a race that was though, what a dramatic final lap. Canon Chu doing the double here in Sepang. What a way to go into the extended break we had for the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. We're not back, of course, until October in Motegi when we support the MotoGP class. But Dennis Onchu and Canon Chu are going to be going into that round, I'm sure, and into the prolonged summer break with a bit of a smile. But of course, they're not going to be hanging up their helmet for too long, because they'll be taking it over to Brno in the Czech Republic for the Red Bull MotoGP Rookies Cup next weekend in the Czech Republic. So let's keep an eye out and see how they get on there as well. There he is, Canon Chu. What a race it's turned out to be. Just being congratulated by Raisu Yamanaka. A good race for Raisu Yamanaka. It wasn't quite the podium finish that he had dreamed of, but nonetheless a very strong result for the Japanese rider, doing a good job this season. Wonder whether he'll be able to take a victory before too long. That first victory does elude him. Of course, he took pole position in Suzuka, but his best result so far has been 2 second places when we had the 2 races in Buriram in Thailand. What a race that was. The riders now just on their reconnaissance lap, going to make their way back to pit road very, very shortly indeed. And Canon Chu riding the crest of a wave here at the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. A fantastic race for the 14-year-old, making history for his country. And of course, I'm sure they'll be taking inspiration from the likes of Kenan Sofwoglu, of course, who has been absolutely dominant in the World Supersport Championship over the last few years. Difficult season he had, of course, missing the first 2 rounds did Kenan Sofwoglu, but nonetheless been back on form over the last few weekends in World Superbikes. But the riders now making their way into Parc Fermé. Brilliant race it was for all involved. A fantastic way to finish what was a brilliant weekend. Canon Chu, Dennis Onchu, Raisa Yamanaka is your podium. Azroy Anwar, Haruki Noguchi in 5th place, the championship leader going into this weekend. Just inside the top 10 was Koki Suzuki, Takuto Suzuki just behind. Then comes Hazik Hamdan, then Reed Beatty, Sol Saimi, and then the riders failing to finish, you can see towards the tail end of the field there, being Koji Hirama and Genki Nakajima. It was, of course, a wet race. The riders started the race on wet tyres, but here's what the Riders' Championship means. It is still Haruki Noguchi that leads the way by 9 points over Dennis Onchu. Raisa Yamanaka, with that podium in that race, moves up into 3rd position. Canon Chu moves up 2 positions as well into P4, so very close indeed throughout the course of the field. The big loser there, of course, is Yuki Kuni, of course, who hasn't been racing here due to injury. Towards the tail end of the field, you can see the riders who are just on the points-paying positions. Reed Beatty were there with 8 points. Sol Saihimi with the positive results moves up 3 positions. And here is the podium then. 3rd place man, Raisu Yamanaka, the Japanese rider. A brilliant way to go into the summer break. That first win does still elude him. Dennis Onchu in 2nd place. The Turkish flag just falls from his back as he jumps onto the podium. And just goes to collect it, puts it on his back. And there is his brother, Canon Chu. A brilliant race for all involved. What a fantastic way to go into the break here at the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. So Raisa Yamanaka is there presented with his 3rd place trophy. What a way to do things for the Japanese rider. 2nd place goes the way of Dennis Onchu. You can see the height difference, even though they're standing on different steps between Can and Dennis. Put them together, you'd never realise they were brothers. And then Canon Chu takes his winner's trophy. And here is the national anthem. What a great way to go into the summer break for the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. Canon Chu, Dennis Onchu and Raisu Yamanaka on the podium. But anyway, that is it from Sepang in Malaysia. Next up, we head to Motegi in Japan in October, supporting the MotoGP round. We hope to see you there. We thank you for your company for this weekend, and we'll see you in October in Motegi.